On November 8, 1942, amid the Operation Torch landings in North Africa, U.S. soldiers huddle low behind sandy ridges while German tanks rumble fiercely over the arid terrain. Their 75-millimeter cannons slice through Allied lines with ruthless efficiency, like a harvester through ripe grain. The sight unfolding before them embodies the dreaded worst-case vision that has plagued strategists ever since armored vehicles debuted on Europe's killing fields. Private First Class Robert Watson aims his M1 rifle toward the oncoming Panzer, fully aware that his 36 round stands no chance against the 3 inches of reinforced steel encasing it. His entire squad confronts this grim truth head-on. They possess no arms able to halt the invading armor, none at all. Yet what escapes Private Watson's notice, and that of every GI on those shores, is the gadget secured to his sergeant's rear, a tool destined to reshape tank-busting tactics for good. At a mere 13 pounds and produced for just $43, it boasts the ability to breach plating thicker than that defeated by artillery 50 times its heft. This invention sprang from the mind of someone utterly detached from battlefield tanks, devoid of any military academy training, and unfamiliar even with discharging a howitzer round. His expertise lay instead in agricultural methods and commercial dynamite, skills that seemed irrelevant to WP's ultimate engineering puzzle. He was Henry Mohout. Back in 1938, he'd been blending compounds in an improvised Swiss workshop, aiming to refine demolition methods for quarry work. An unintended breakthrough there would catapult this rural inventor into the role of empowering lone infantrymen to dismantle the era's pinnacle of military hardware. The item slung over Sergeant Miller's shoulder bears the label M1A1 Bazooka, a moniker soon to instill terror in Wehrmacht crews from the sands of Tunisia all the way to Berlin's ruins. Still, the tale of how a countryman's blast research evolved into the U.S. infantry's premier terror against armor endures as one of the war's greatest untold tales. September 1st, 1939. German forces storm into Poland, unveiling the era of Blitzkrieg, or lightning war, to a stunned globe. Panzer groups shred Polish barriers in under 3 weeks, underscoring how victory in contemporary combat hinges on mastery of superior mechanized might. The outdated countermeasures, honed in the immobile ditches of the Great War, crumble at once before swift rolling tank assaults. As Allied tacticians pore over the Polish disaster with mounting dread, British strategies center on 2-pounder cannons launching solid slugs, dense steel projectiles meant to smash through foe plating via raw momentum alone. The laws of motion offer no mercy here. Breaching dense plating demands projectiles of immense mass hurtling at blistering speeds, necessitating colossal barrels, burdensome shells, and ideal placement. This brutal equation cripples foot soldiers' setups. A single 2-pounder anti-tank piece tips the scales at 148 pounds and needs a lorry for transport. In the heat of combat, once dug in, it resists swift relocation. The Germans' Panzer doctrine preys on this flaw without pity. Tanks surge forward at breakneck pace, compelling the guns to fire from afar where precision falters, then dash in so close that the weapons struggle to swivel and follow the dynamic threats. U.S. analysts draw even bleaker insights. Colonel Leslie McNair, the key designer of American Land Army strategies, reviews interwar drills and issues a chilling verdict. The nation's 37mm anti-tank cannon falls short against current plating within fighting distances. Piercing a German tank head-on calls for spot-on strikes closer than 400 yards, distances at which the enemy armor can obliterate the gunner long before it retaliates. Researchers across disciplines mobilize against the armor dilemma. Dr. Charles Luritson of the California Institute of Technology floats ideas for electromagnetic railguns to hurl shots at unheard-of paces. But the hurdles prove too steep. Such systems crave vast power sources, rendering them useless amid the chaos of war. The leading path forward seems to involve boosting shot speed via extended tubes and stronger explosive loads. The Germans' notorious 88mm anti-aircraft gun exemplifies this mindset, capable of cracking any Allied vehicle from beyond 2,000 yards. Yet nature exacts a steep toll. The 88mm tips over 16,000 pounds and demands a robust tow vehicle for setup. A shared expert view crystallizes around a harsh fact: potent anti-tank arms inevitably prove cumbersome, costly, and rigid in deployment. Portable options lack the punch to crack contemporary shields, whereas bulky ones lag in maneuvering to meet fluid tank maneuvers. The Wehrmacht's armored spearheads have forged an impasse that standard innovation can't breach. Spy dispatches out of North Africa only heighten Allied anxieties, as German armored outfits showcase fresh tactical maneuvers. German tanks demonstrate a remarkable degree of advancement through synchronized assaults involving several vehicles that overpower enemy defenses. Despite successful strikes from Allied anti-tank artillery, these German armored units frequently endure several blows and keep battling. The production volume needed to manufacture sufficient heavy anti-tank cannons to counter German armor output surpasses what the Allies can achieve in their factories. Amid this atmosphere of strategic frustration and engineering constraints emerges an improbable individual. He lacks any credentials in military engineering, battlefield involvement, or official arms instruction. His proficiency stems from farm-related chemistry and quarry blasting materials, skills that appear utterly disconnected from combating armored vehicles. Yet, Henry Mohalap is poised to demonstrate that addressing the era's most formidable armed conflict issue doesn't demand larger cannons or stronger motors, but rather stems from a basic misconception regarding the true mechanics of detonations. On August 16, 1915, a boy enters the world to Flora and Berthold Mohal in the quaint Swiss hamlet of Egg, situated amid the elevations beyond Zurich. Heinrich, who would eventually gain global recognition as Henry, matures in a family setting where discussions of explosives form part of everyday meals. His father, Berthold, serves as a specialist chemist in the field of mining detonators, permeating their humble residence with the sharp odor of reactive substances and debates on detonation spreads and stone breakage. As a child, Heinrich displays minimal enthusiasm for structured schooling. Following difficulties in high school, he finishes practical instruction as an electrical mechanic, a reliable profession that ensures reliable earnings, though it offers scant hint of impending breakthroughs in defense technology. At age 19, he completes his mandatory Swiss Armed Service in 1935 without distinction, resuming ordinary existence devoid of evident passion for armaments or conflict. The event that elevates this ordinary youth to the status of a pioneering arms innovator is sheer chance. Employed as a specialist chemist in Zurich, Heinrich sets up a modest workspace in 1936 dedicated to testing commercial-grade explosives. His aim remains strictly business-oriented, aiming to enhance detonation methods for Switzerland's extraction sector, which demands accurate blasts to split stone while safeguarding precious mineral veins. The pivotal discovery occurs amid a standard trial in late 1935. Heinrich positions a minor explosive load inside a conical metallic enclosure, anticipating the force to disperse evenly, consistent with standard explosive behavior. To his surprise, he observes a phenomenon that defies his understanding of blast dynamics. The enclosure channels the energy into a concentrated, extraordinarily forceful stream that slices through a steel sheet as if it were mere foil. Experts in the scientific community had been aware of the Monroe effect since 1888, yet regarded it merely as an academic oddity lacking real-world utility. Heinrich Mohal, drawing on his rural practicality and chemical expertise from industry, swiftly grasps what scholars with advanced arms knowledge had overlooked. This directed detonation could render compact portable blasts more effective than bulky standard armaments. His realization proves elegantly straightforward. Conventional anti-armor tools depend on momentum, from solid rounds propelled at extreme speeds to breech plating. Such systems necessitate oversized barrels, weighty shells, and vast quantities of fuel. In contrast, shaped charges operate via an entirely distinct mechanism. They harness blast power to generate a swift stream of liquefied metal capable of piercing plating irrespective of the device's scale or the round's starting speed. The computational benefits are astounding. A shaped charge of just 2 pounds can breach greater armor thickness than a traditional anti-tank cannon, tipping the scales at 2 tons. Moreover, these charges perform consistently, whether deployed from colossal howitzers or basic projectors that lone infantrymen can shoulder. This innovation levels the playing field in anti-armor combat, equipping regular troops with the ability to destroy tanks that once only dedicated heavy units possessed. However, when Heinrich seeks approval for expanded trials, officials in the Swiss forces reject his concept as unfeasible. Colonel Hans Frick, head of Swiss munitions advancement, examines Heinrich's basic prototype and issues a crushing assessment. The Swiss military demands validated momentum-based arms, not unconventional blast tools that challenge long-held strategic principles. The dismissal wounds deeply, yet Heinrich presses on. Throughout 1937 and 1938, he perfects his shaped charge prototypes, boosting their breaching efficiency and resolving engineering hurdles that seasoned armament specialists deem insurmountable. His research journals brim with formulas and diagrams destined to transform combat tactics. Should any official heed the notions of a Swiss rural lad harboring bold views on detonators, his improvised lab techniques would appall expert munitions fabricators. Heinrich repurposes copper tubing by liquefying it in a makeshift oven. He fashioned the malleable metal into conical forms, drawing on age-old Swiss crafting methods. Every liner for the shaped charge demanded exact specifications. If overly robust, the blast wouldn't generate an effective stream. If excessively fragile, the material would shatter prior to breaching the target. Relying solely on experimentation, Heinrich devised production methods that even scholarly experts hadn't conceived. On October 26, 1939, he placed his most advanced model into a rudimentary launcher and performed his initial significant trial. The objective was a piece of railroad track simulating the density of tank plating. His shaped charge measured only 30 mm and held fewer explosives than those in a grenade. Yet, Heinrich was convinced it could surpass the capabilities of anti-tank cannons, which tipped the scales at hundreds of multiples heavier. The blast produced a vivid orange burst, trailed by the sharp snap of scorching metal slicing through the iron. As the haze dissipated, Heinrich gazed in astonishment at a flawless circular puncture bored straight through the rail segment, damage that would demand a colossal anti-tank firearm discharged from mere feet away. However, Heinrich's triumph proved short-lived. Later that year, when British munitions specialists reviewed his display in Zurich, they responded with quick scorn. Major Geoffrey Williams, speaking for the Royal Arsenal, inspected Heinrich's rough prototypes with scarcely hidden disdain. Mr. Mahopt, the British Army demands dependable, battle-proven arms, not lab curiosities that might succeed in perfect settings, yet collapse disastrously on the field. The French verdict hit even harder. Following Heinrich's journey to Paris in pursuit of production deals, armament authorities issued a ruling that almost doomed his endeavor. Monsieur Mahout, your cavity charge idea contravenes proven ballistic laws. No reputable armed force would base its defenses on such outlandish notions. Military observers who watched Heinrich's Paris showings submitted evaluations mirroring the prevailing opinion. Subjects' assertions surpass believable operational limits. Advise holding off on hollow charge apparatus until confirmed by expert munitions professionals. The dismissal from the technical community rang out as total and overwhelming. All leading powers brushed aside Heinrich's creation as unfeasible speculation from an untrained outsider. Seasoned armament authorities refused to concede that a rural Swiss youth, armed with elementary chemical knowledge, had cracked challenges that had baffled elite munitions designers for years. Heinrich confronted a grim dilemma: forsake his groundbreaking find and revert to standard factory labor, or press on amid blanket scorn from authorities. The matter resolved itself when Nazi troops seized France in June 1940, wiping out his key pathway for advancement and trapping him in impartial Switzerland with armament know-how that held no appeal. Unbeknownst to Heinrich, on the other side of the ocean, frantic U.S. commanders were on the verge of realizing that orthodox anti-tank strategies had crumbled utterly, sparking the emergency that would at last compel authorities to heed a countryman's blasting revelations. October 18, 1940, Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. The nation's top anti-tank authorities assembled to observe what plenty viewed as a squandering of vital wartime assets. Henry Mohop, after enduring prolonged administrative hurdles to arrive in America, positioned himself by a portable stand, exhibiting his basic-shaped charge models. Surrounding him, officers in uniform and non-combatant researchers displayed looks from doubt to outright antagonism. Colonel René Studler, head of Army Munitions Development, scrutinized Mohawk's gadgets with expert scorn. "Mr. Mohop, these resemble adapted quarry blasts, not serviceable arms. The U.S. Army seeks validated anti-tank options, not trial gadgets rooted in unproven ideas." Dr. Clarence Hickman, the foremost U.S. figure in rocketry, bent in with thinly veiled annoyance. "Sir, respectfully, shaped charge outcomes date back to the 1880s. Armed forces scholars have probed this effect thoroughly and determined it holds no viable combat value. What convinces you that you've uncovered what expert armament developers overlooked?" Then, Mohal ignited his enhanced version. The detonation yielded a striking glow, chased by the telltale hiss of blistering metal tearing into the alloy. Upon checking the test panel, the watchers found a pristine circular bore punched fully through plating, impervious to any current foot soldier's tool. A prolonged quiet hung as the country's armament minds grappled with the spectacle. Dr. Hickman shattered the hush with analytical exactness. "The depth pierced by that apparatus outstrips the output of our 37 mm. The demonstration multiplies the destructive power of a standard anti-tank gun by 3 times. Should this result prove consistent in further trials, it signals a revolutionary advance in combating armored threats." Chaos breaks out in the meeting hall. Major Thomas Rearon, advocate for frontline artillery innovations, slams his fist on the table. "Colonel, the anti-tank arsenal we have right now falls short against German tanks. If this invention from a Swiss agriculturist truly delivers, why reject it outright instead of exploring its potential?" Captain Edward Uhl, an emerging expert in munitions engineering, offers his measured yet resolute input. "Sir, my analysis of firing records from the North African campaign shows our 37mm anti-tank guns managing under 15% success in breaching German armor at typical engagement distances. Should Mr. Mohop's method boost those figures, we ought to advance it without regard to its quirky beginnings." General Campbell signals for calm, yet the argument presses on. Dr. Charles Lurson, affiliated with the California Institute of Technology, levels the sharpest rebuttal. Such an approach defies core tenets of functional armament engineering. Compact blasting mechanisms simply can't rival the breaching might of big-bore cannons. This would mean wagering U.S. troops on untested scientific concepts. Tension peaks as Colonel Robert Goddard, pioneer of U.S. rocket science, scrutinizes Mohawk's schematics. Goddard's legacy in bold ideas earns him deference across the board, and his opinion sways defense leaders profoundly. "Gentlemen," he remarks softly, "for 2 decades I've pioneered rocketry that skeptics labeled as mere pipe dreams. Mr. Mohop's focused blasts utilize proven laws of physics in clever configurations. The breaching effect observed here aligns with solid principles of heat dynamics." Colonel Studler lodges his last protest. "Dr. Goddard, you're urging a total overhaul of U.S. anti-armor strategy on one demo from an unknown tinkerer. This spells massive budgetary exposure and operational unknowns." General Campbell rises. His verdict is final. "Colonel, our existing anti-armor strategy has crumbled in North Africa and beyond. German tanks rule wherever they roll. If Mr. Mohalap's system provides even a slight edge over current gear, we launch development without delay." He addresses Mohawk directly. "Sir, you'll get boundless funding and utmost security clearance. Demonstrate that your focused blasts perform dependably in combat scenarios." Silence descends as the nation's armaments elite endorses the boldest wager in armed forces annals, banking on a Swiss tiller's blasting genius to halt the Nazi blitz. If untold tales of WW's hidden armaments captivate you, be sure to subscribe and enable alerts. Next up, how this tiller's outlandish creation turned into the tool empowering every GI to take down tanks. But first, he endured the red tape aiming to bury it. June 14, 1942, Aberdeen Proving Ground firing line. Henry Mohop observes tensely while crew members fit his newest focused blast payload into the prototype M1 tube, a basic launcher destined for global fame as the bazooka. Following 18 months of rigorous refinement, his Swiss quarry blasts have transformed into the U.S.'s top anti-armor prospect. The objective marks the supreme challenge, a seized German Panzer IV boasting 80mm front plating, the very shielding that renders Wehrmacht armored squads all but impervious to Allied foot soldier arms. Standard 37mm anti-tank pieces demand an average of 17 straight strikes to assure knockout of such a foe. Mohawk's 60mm focused blast round tips the scales at merely 3.4 lb, yet channels its blast force with exacting geometry. Sergeant First Class Edward Uhl hefts the tube and sights the enemy turret. Distance, 150 yards. Close quarters where hostile tanks would typically shred foot troops. Uhl squeezes the trigger, igniting the propellant that propels the blast payload at 270 feet per second toward the mark. The blast yields a vivid orange burst, then chain reactions as the Panzer's stores cook off. Inspectors later find a neat circular breach drilled straight through the turret's heaviest plating. The focus charge has pulled off what arms specialists deemed mechanically unfeasible, handing lone troops the tank-slaying punch once limited to elite heavy units. Data from rigorous evaluations leave defense watchers reeling. The M1 bazooka scores 89% accuracy on fixed aims out to 200 yards. That's better than many traditional anti-tank rifles. Even more crucially, the device tips the scales at only 13.2 lb when ready, enabling swift shifts in position that render. It renders it extremely difficult for hostile tanks to spot and eliminate. Yet, triumphs in the lab hold no value without real-world battlefield proof. On November 8, 1942, along the Operation Torch Shores in North Africa, U.S. troops carried out the initial combat trial of shaped charge munitions versus Axis tanks under live fire conditions. Private First Class Robert Murphy huddles behind a sandy ridge close to Oran while German Panzer IIIs push forward over the wasteland toward U.S. lines. He grips an M1A1 bazooka fitted with Moalap's groundbreaking shaped charge projectile, marking the debut in warfare where any trooper wields a handheld device able to take down primary battle tanks. The shaped charge projectile hits the Panzer's turret junction and explodes with exacting accuracy. A blistering copper stream traveling at 20,000 feet per second bores into the plating and sets off onboard explosives. The vehicle bursts into an inferno as its occupants flee, leaving behind the pinnacle of German armored might to a tool cheaper than a typical U.S. factory hand's monthly earnings. The Germans respond quickly and with concern. Oberst Klaus Fieber, leader of the 501st Heavy Tank Battalion, submits a pressing intel briefing. U.S. foot soldiers now hold arms that can breach Tiger tank plating up close. Standard maneuvers demand urgent overhaul to address this emerging danger. The mental toll on German armored operators outweighs even the material losses. Hermann Rudolf S., a seasoned panzer leader boasting 43 vehicle destructions, notes in his journal, "These U.S. rocket arms turn every foot soldier's spot into a possible tank slayer. We advance no longer with assurance, aware that any hidden trooper behind shelter could obliterate our machine in one blast." Battle records from Tunisia confirm the shaped charge breakthrough. Over 6 months of clashes, U.S. bazooka squads notched 312 verified tank destructions. Greater enemy armor taken out by foot soldiers than in every prior U.S. campaign added together. The destruction per pound figure stands out particularly. For each pound of the bazooka setup, it averages 1.7 tons of faux armored units neutralized, yet the device's peak achievement unfolds in the July 1943 Sicily offensive. Staff Sergeant Charles Kelly, equipped with an M1A1 bazooka, confronts a German Tiger Einhorn near Gala, the Wehrmacht's toughest armored beast, boasting 100mm front shielding impervious to Allied tank cannons at practical distances. Kelly's opening round smashes the Tiger's tread, halting the 57-ton behemoth. His follow-up missile pierces the turret's flank, slaying 2 operators and triggering ammo reserves. The Tiger's skipper, Oberleutnant Hans Kluge, deserts his ride and alerts higher command. U.S. foot soldier arms now in danger are plating more than opposing tanks. I urge swift changes to tactics for nearby infantry aid. These broader effects reshape Allied land strategies in a flash. General George Patton, witnessing bazooka prowess in Sicily, rolls out fresh combat directives. Each rifle unit must hold built-in anti-armor strength via rocket tubes. No need anymore for huge clusters of anti-tank cannons to halt faux armor pushes. The German counteraction offers the truest endorsement of Mohlap's creation. Wehrmacht designers, studying seized bazookas from Tunisia, swiftly launched the Panzerfaust, the Panzerschreck, a blatant imitation of U.S.-shaped charge methods scaled up to 88 mm. German troops dubbed their "Take the Offenrohr stovepipe," tipping their hat to the rough yet lethally potent Yankee blueprint they're racing to match. Come December 1943, U.S. plants churn out 8,000 bazooka rounds daily, sufficient shaped charge tips to hypothetically wipe out the entire German tank fleet 2 times. What started as a Swiss agriculturist's blasting trial evolved into history's most widely manufactured accurate anti-armor apparatus. Technical Sergeant James Thompson, survivor of 37 bazooka duels from Tunisia to Normandy, captures the tool's war zone shift. Prior to bazookas, spotting German tanks signaled a dash for hiding and prayers that some heavy artillery was at hand. Post-bazookas, every ground pounder turned tank destroyer. That Swiss fellow Mohlap didn't merely hand us fresh gear. He reshaped the essence of land warfare. The closing figures seal the shaped charge upheaval. German tank casualties from foot soldier arms surged 850% from 1942 to 1945, as Allied deaths from tank assaults dropped 65%. Henry Mohlap's rural roots and blasting epiphanies have leveled anti-tank combat, empowering each warrior to dismantle the era's pinnacle war engines. We arrive at the astonishing wrap-up of this tale. How a Swiss tiller's unfeasible breakthrough didn't just alter World War II, but keeps shaping. Even now, this innovation continues to shield troops in the field. Stay tuned for the unfolding story, as this breakthrough keeps safeguarding lives across today's global conflicts. On May 8, 1945, Victory in Europe Day, Allied troops marked the fall of Germany, while seized Wehrmacht records exposed the profound effects of Henry Mohlap's groundbreaking creation. Losses among German tanks to handheld infantry arms surpassed 15,000 units, with foot soldiers destroying more armored vehicles than Allied tanks and anti-tank artillery put together. The shaped charge method, born from a Swiss farmer's ingenuity, had reshaped the dynamics of land combat forever. After the war, evaluations uncovered astonishing output figures. U.S. plants produced more than 20 million bazooka rounds from 1942 to 1945, outstripping the total precision anti-tank ammo available to every army worldwide before the conflict started. The effort demanded materials on par with constructing 500 heavy bombers, yet it equipped each U.S. infantry unit with lethal tank-busting power. Captured German ordnance specialists, questioned post-surrender, offered reluctant praise for America's progress in shaped charges. Dr. Frontock, who led Germany's hollow charge efforts, conceded that Mohawk's warhead innovations outpaced their own for the duration of the war. Our Panzerschreck and Panzerfaust launchers were rough imitations of U.S. tech that we struggled to match completely. The broader strategic fallout carried even greater weight. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, who oversaw German operations in Western Europe, revealed in secret post-war sessions that U.S. infantry anti-tank gear compelled a total overhaul of our armored strategies. Our tanks couldn't back up assaults anymore without suffering devastating losses from lone troops wielding rocket launchers. Henry Mohawk's contributions echo through every current anti-tank system. Contemporary tools like Javelin missiles, Tau setups, and RPG projectiles all draw on the shaped charge concepts he first developed in his Swiss workshop. Whether in Afghanistan or Ukraine, warriors wield arms rooted in that farmer's 1935 blast trials. Master Sergeant Robert Chin, seasoned from Iraq and Afghanistan tours, shoulders a sleek AT-4 launcher, a straight-line heir to Mohlap's classic bazooka blueprint. This gadget tips the scales at under 15 pounds, yet it can neutralize any tank out there, Chin shares. He adds, Firing it feels like tapping into a Swiss inventor's WTT brainchild. It's incredible how one person's idea still guards fighters 8 decades on. The sheer mathematical sophistication of Mohawk's breakthrough keeps fueling arms engineers. Today's shaped charge projectiles pierce to depths over 700% of their width, leaving even cutting-edge main battle tanks exposed to gear hauled by single infantrymen. That shift toward widespread anti-tank access, sparked by Mohawk's work, has steadily eroded the value of costly heavy plating. Henry Mohawk passed away peacefully in Santa Barbara, California, on May 20, 2001, after witnessing how his roots in farm chemistry evolved into the bedrock of today's targeted explosives. Local papers' notices about him scarcely noted his wartime role, just as he'd have preferred. Amid eras where tech edges tipped the scales in wars, a modest pioneer showed that game-changing ideas often spring from unlikely origins. Henry Mohawk's shaped charges didn't claim victories alone. They demonstrated how Yankee resourcefulness could dismantle any foe's edge, blast by calculated blast.